You are not behind. You are not behind in this life. That is a story. Stay with me, and I want to walk you through. Let's talk about that for a moment, but then I'm going to walk you through and share with you something that is a way of relating with your human experience. And if you stay to the end, I'm going to share with you a skill and a practice that will change your life. And it continues to support me and the many individuals and leaders that I've worked with, because it's something that we all can learn to do, but we're not taught. So let's just talk for a moment about this narrative of and this feeling of being behind. As a woman, we have a biological clock. As a human, we have all these ideas and dreams and goals and these agendas for our life. And so many of us are on that journey. We're on that path. Sometimes it feels like we're on that hamster wheel. And because there is that clock for women, especially if you are a woman that has or wants to have children, that idea that is real can end up being a blanket across your entire life. And until you take your last breath, you are not too late. You are here. You are in the experience of the unfolding of your life. But because of these constructs and these ideas about what is a good life, we end up spending a lot of time in the pursuit, right? In the destination. And we forget, we fall asleep too. We lose our attention on the journey. I do want to affirm and validate that that experience of feeling like you're behind is also something that will continue to confront you, because we're living in a world that is on that same kind of pursuit and that drive. And there's a lot of energy in the world that is on that place, that is on that trajectory, that is bought into that. And that's very seductive. We are often pack people. And there's all kinds of reasons why that comes up, from marketing to the constructs to unspoken agreements with the people in our lives. And so that story and that narrative of feeling like you're behind is really something you have to choose to opt out of. You have to choose to recognize what you want your perspective of your life to be. But it is common. It is part of this human experience to feel like you are running behind, or that FOMO. There's all variations of that in our life. And I experienced that. I definitely experienced that when I wanted to have children and thinking that was going to be a part of my human experience, and it wasn't. And just, if there's things that you want to pursue in your life and you haven't started that, it can feel like you're behind or it's too late. If you see people living a life or doing things that you want and you see yourself doing, it can feel like you are behind. And the truth is, you're on your own path. And anytime you want to move towards that thing, whatever it is, you can choose that. So I wanted to acknowledge that. And then I want to share with you something that you may have heard before. You might even relate to this or agree with this. It is an orientation to being in this human experience that can shift how you experience, how you relate with, and how you navigate and lead your life. And one of the most powerful things about it is that it is opting in to a life of learning, of recognizing that that is part of what's happening here, that you're on a journey, that you came here to learn. And it is that you are not a human who happens to have a soul. Rather, you are a soul having a human experience. And that you chose to come here and learn and have that experience. And without getting into all of the mystical details of that, because I think that that is truly a mystery in so many ways. And that's what science is, by the way. It's a lot of mystery. And what happens when you decide to think about yourself not as just a human with a soul, but as a soul with a human experience, you can gain an altitude to your life. You can see it not just as the pursuit of who you are, meaning your name, all of your markers that identify who you are in this physical 3D world. You can also actually see yourself as a soul who happened to come into this world embodying all of that, that was all part of the learning and the journey that you signed up for. It's also deciding to see that you came here to learn, and if that's the objective, to learn. It's getting a little hot in here. To become more revealed to yourself, excuse me, it's that opportunity. Oh, the Virgo in me is challenged by this. Here we go. It's that opportunity to stay in the learner perspective, to recognize that everything that happens in your life, you can decide to see it and use it for your growth, your healing, and your upliftment. And we are operating in a world that has really rested in a polarity without a lot of respect for the gray, for the mystery. And polarity meaning good, bad, right, wrong, that we have to find. That's where we find safety. And as a soul, you are deciding that you are here to learn and things are being revealed and it's all part of your destiny and it's all for you. It's not ever happening to you, because all those things disempower you. That perspective of seeing things as happening to you, of over-identifying with yourself as the roles that you play in your life and the achievements that you've created and your name and your culture, when you rest in those things only, then it's really difficult to actually have a level of sovereignty that you experience, and freedom, inner freedom, and even safety. Because in all of those markers of how you might identify yourself, you're relying on a lot of external things to affirm that. You're relying on other people, you're relying on rules and standards and customs and ideas, good, bad, or indifferent. When you decide to experience and see your human existence as a soul, that becomes your journey with your creator. It's opting in for, I would offer, an elevated way of being in this journey, being in this human realm. So if you sit with that for a moment, your life will look differently. Your life experience will look differently. And we live in a world that is very much saturated in the ego, in the ego's experience. And so that's part of what we've opted into to come here. So, and that is a common narrative. So you can't escape that. That's part of the experience. It's not meant to be rejected. It's just not meant to be the leader of your life. When the ego is the leader of your life, it will always lead to disappointment, or you'll end in an empty place, and not in a place of like nothingness, which could be actually really spacious and wonderful. It'll be in a place that feels vacant, because the ego is just trying to find something temporary. It's not substantive, not as it relates to like your inner knowing, your divinity. And The ego is how you attract a lot of those learnings. So it is in service to your soul's journey. And everything that's happening in your life is essentially providing you. It's like offering up on a platter this opportunity to grow in this way or that way. All the choices that you make, all the things that you're drawn to, all of the patterns that you're in, and the ways that you might recycle things, even all the ways that you judge yourself, all of that is part of your healing and your learning and your unfolding. The last thing I'll say about this is that I was thinking about sharing an example of something. I was just really deep in this conversation with a dear friend, and we share this perspective on our human experience. But like I said, we are living in a world, like you, that is dominant in the ego. And so the ego is what feels pain. The ego is what feels attached. The ego is what is judging you. The ego is what's telling you what's right or wrong. The soul is neutral. The soul resides in the energy of unconditional loving, unconditional positive regard. The soul is experienced through joy and beauty and creativity and curiosity. One of the most powerful ways to discern the difference is that the soul is spacious, it's relaxed, it's open, it's possibility. The ego is contracted, the ego is compression, the ego is protective. The ego is operating with an agenda always. The soul has no agenda. The soul is literally just here to hold you within as you become revealed to yourself in your human experience. So if you think about this in your life, let me just be practical for a moment, because what I said might be a little too esoteric, but I'm still offering it for your consideration. And how this shows up in our life is like all of your relationships, every situation you're in within your career or your business, your family, your partnerships, your children, your friends, all of that, that's all here to teach you. So the situations, let's just say you're in a really challenging situation. Maybe I'll just use an example of my own. Like I have been on a journey of entrepreneurship and I'm building something here in the physical world. And how I go through that, how I relate to myself, how I lead my experience, that is all part of the learning. It's all part of my growth. And through the experience of things working or not working, always going to find one of those. That was a judgment. If I could just be more tangible, Jennifer. It's like when I started this journey of entrepreneurship, I have a very clear goal. I also started it knowing that it's not about proving something. It's not like my self-esteem is not attached to it. And I think that has a lot to do with the life I've already lived, of the maturity that I have in my years on the planet, of the things that I've gone through, of just knowing more who I am. And I'm not saying I don't get hooked and there isn't part of that happens, but my point in sharing that is that I'm driven. I have all these qualities, all these ways of being that create who I am. And I've been able to bring in levity often because of that other foundation I mentioned. However, I have growth that's available for me just like anybody else. So along the path, I've hit challenges that have been at times very painful. And I go through it. I have to walk through it. I can be blind to the heart of it. I can struggle in it. My ego has gotten really stuck in certain parts. That's part of my learning journey. What has helped me is that over time I have deepened this understanding of who I am as a soul. And that has supported me from not over identifying with the journey of entrepreneurship. But I still have had challenges taking things personal. And that's part of the journey. The power of it, at least as I'm understanding it right now in my example, is that because I'm not being driven just by my ego and some agenda of like proving to myself or compete. I mean, all those things can happen in certain ways, but the ego has a lot of ways it's trying to work itself out. And there's plenty of things that I have worked out. So when I come into this experience, those haven't been a lot of my challenges. But as I said, because I choose to be on this journey as a student, I definitely have my own share because that's happening until we stop breathing. But the ego is searching for an answer. The ego has to have the right, wrong, good, bad. The ego lives in polarity, and that's where a lot of suffering gets kicked up, and that's where it lasts. It's like as long as we choose that, there's plenty of things in life that not only do we not have an answer to, but often the answer we're looking for, we do not come upon it inside. Like we don't recognize it until we're ready. And that could be years in the future. I know you've had experiences where you have an understanding of something and then much later you have a new understanding. So whatever is going on in your life, whether it's a challenge in a relationship or you feel like you are behind in your life, or there's parts or a part of your life that doesn't feel on track for you, I'm offering for your consideration to first realize that the decision that you're behind is a judgment and it's a disposition that you could actually abort whenever you want. And you could decide that it's not only is it not necessary, but it's based in what? It's based in this idea like that it's a personal choice, but it's also recognizing that a lot of what we believe is right or wrong or is, the rules of life we absorbed, we inherited. We didn't consciously choose. And yes, we're not here forever, but holding an idea over you like that you're behind is just holding an idea over you. It's trapping you in that judgment that will continue to perpetuate more of the same. But if you were to see that, if you're feeling that way, you can also look at it from this orientation I'm mentioning, and you can see it as feedback. If some part of you feels like you're behind, then instead of staying in the judgment, ask yourself, behind for what? What is it that you would like? Where do you feel behind? It's just mirroring to you some part of you that actually probably would benefit from some exploration of like, what is it that I actually feel like I want that I'm not doing? And I do think that's the case for a lot of women because we've been living lives for other people. We were born into a society that was not built for us. That was not built for really truly respecting and honoring us as an individual, not for what we can do, not for what our sex does, meaning our gender, excuse me. So that's that's what I'm offering for you to consider, is like exploring that, but letting it inform you and encourage you, then hold over you. I guess this street is one where they like to race. I don't even know if you could hear that, so it's silly for me to say it, but it's distracting me. So, whether it's a relationship, a business, a part of your business, or a job, everything is here to teach you. And that doesn't mean you have to be school in session, meaning you don't have to be pursuing every single thing all the time. No. And that context that you are actually a soul here to learn can give you an edge. It can help you recognize that you are a divine being, and all of it is part of your journey. And there's nothing wrong with you and your journey. There might be things that you want to change, and that's called being in a human experience, and that's the discernment or the ideas or the dreams. All of that is part of it. There's nothing wrong with that either. And when you see yourself as a soul instead of just a human with a soul, which is really more the ego than driving your life, then you can zoom out. You can have altitude on your entire life. So the last thing I want to share before I wrap this up is the skill, is the practice that if our planet, if part of evolving and educating children, we were learning this, our entire humanity would be different. It is essentially neutral observation. And let me give it a little context. Let me break it down just a little bit so that you understand that it's not just some simple thing, because it can be over time. But because of how we have been conditioned, because of how humans have been developing, we don't know how to look at our world and our life with neutral eyes. That's not a default setting. The default setting is to be the judge and juror in varying degrees, mostly and often of ourselves. And it often just keeps us trapped in the judgment cycle. When you cultivate this practice of neutral observation of your life and your behavior and your how you show up, how you respond to things, how you feel in your body, what happens for you in any given day, then you're just collecting data. You're like you can be a social scientist. And the leadership of your life is the most important work you will ever do. That's everything is an extension of you. So your ability to grow and learn and adapt and become wiser and more empowered and not just embodied, but on purpose with your experience of who you are, comes through your ability to be in thoughtful engagement. And because the dominant way of being here is to react, is to be more emotional, that energy, because it's often contracting, it's not life-giving. It depletes your energy. And often we don't feel good about ourselves when we've handled something from that way, which means it erodes your self-esteem and your self-confidence. So the practice, in a very simple term, is like having a journal by your bedside. And every night before you go to sleep, you literally just answer the question, what did I notice today? about yourself. It will extend naturally to others, and that's a very powerful skill to bring into every environment. And you are the leader of you. You have dominion only over you. So becoming really learned and aware with that curiosity of neutrality, it's a very powerful thing, because then you can start to just see yourself and have more compassion and, like I said, curiosity for your human experience, because every way that you respond to your life is all part of the adapted style of being, of feeling safe, of feeling okay, of wanting to create, have love. It's all part of that. We're here. The human being wants to belong. It wants to know that it matters. It wants to feel seen. It wants to feel love. It wants to feel special. That's a lot of part of the human experience. But because so many of us are literally, we're populating through people that never got it and don't know how to give it. Even the healthiest parents are often projecting their unhealed stuff onto their children, because it takes a lot of work and energy to there's no perfection here, and you don't ultimately control how your children metabolize you. You do have control over the environment that you create and the health and healing of your own energy and vibration. But that's not something that's really common here. So neutral observation becomes a power tool. It becomes a way for you to literally become less identified with yourself on the ego pursuit and more resting in your soul. Because the soul is the observer, it's the ultimate observer. When you start to have this practice of answering that question, what did I notice? It's like, how did I, it's like, it's trusting whatever you notice, but it's also removing the story, the propensity to create also the narrative around it, because this and this and that, that's all adding conjecture that, by the way, is just more and more of the same of what you already believe. It doesn't matter in this practice. What matters is you start to see and get curious about it, like you are a scientist. So you might acknowledge a repeat pattern on judging yourself around something. You might notice that your energy really drops around 3 p.m. every day. You might notice that you've been procrastinating on taking care of something. You might notice that you feel not good when you're around a certain person or in a certain place. You might notice that this or that really inspires you. All of it. It's data. You're getting a shadow here. And it helps you see, become more aware of yourself without being unconscious to it and without trying to make sense of it all the time, because that's what we've learned to do. That's the default. And over time, I'm not going to get into the whole thing here. I'm actually creating a tool, and I'm excited about it, that I do believe will help individuals do this. I'm calling it the practice. But what's really powerful about this is that when you start to learn this and practice this, it's a devotion to self. And your devotion to yourself is everything but selfish. It's saying, I honor my life. It's saying, I take responsibility for my life. It's saying, I care about my person. It's saying that it matters to me, the quality of my existence. And I'm not saying that you don't have all of that already. I'm just offering that in practice is not something I believe and I've seen we're really taught. We're taught that in ways that are all these external things and or beating ourselves up for not meeting up to some idea. But when you start to zoom out and consider that you're not just a human with a soul, you're actually a soul having a human experience, and you start to observe yourself with neutrality and curiosity, then you become like a social scientist or a spiritual scientist, however you want to relate to it. And what happens naturally, because of how brilliant you are, and if you're even doing this practice, this is part of what you're here to do. If you're even listening to this video, this is me sharing something with you that is already within you. Meaning the desire to live a deeper understanding of your existence, a desire for growth and expansion. What happens when you start to do this practice is that over time, you naturally see patterns. You start to get curious about that. You start to see threads. And what you notice and what you want to address, maybe it's something you want to shift in your life. Maybe it's something you want to pay more attention to. Maybe it's something you want to look at healing. Maybe you're seeing that there's something there for you. Maybe there's something you need to express. Maybe there's something you need to address. Maybe you need to get some support. But that will all naturally happen, because even though your quality of your existence may not include what I'm talking about right now, you still have been leading a very powerful life. You are a brilliant divine being. So adding this layer is just saying, oh, I'm interested in this deeper cut. I see the value in this. I see this is speaking to some part of me that already knows this. And it just unfolds from there. If this is landing for you, if this is something that you are very curious about or you're interested in, I encourage you to start the practice today. And subscribe to my channel so that you see my videos again, and you'll know when I actually launch this tool. And if you're interested in that, you can use that, but you can do it with a journal. Thank you for being here with me. My name is Jennifer, and I'm here every day to remind you that your truth is your power. I'll see you tomorrow.